This is Larry Gordon. I'm going to show you how I plan to use Confer for teaching math online. I won't go into detail about using Confer. They have excellent online training material where you can learn all about it. I'll start by demonstrating a solution to an exercise as a student would see it. After that, I'll show you how it was done, including software and hardware I used. I'll now switch to the whiteboard as a student would see it. So we're now looking at the whiteboard as a student would see it, and I'll demonstrate graphing a linear equation. And we want to graph y equals negative 3/4 x minus 2, and we want to use slope and y-intercept. To create our graph. So I like to encourage use of the textbook, so I'm going to bring up the online textbook we use, and I'll go to Chapter 8, Section 8.3, and the bottom of that page is where 8.3 begins. I go to the next page and the bottom of that page, and we find graphing a linear equation using its slope and y-intercept. The first sentence in the objective here is what I want to convey to the student, and I'm going to capture that sentence and paste it onto my whiteboard. So first I'll capture the sentence, and go back to my whiteboard and paste that sentence in, and now I can resize that sentence and move it to where I want. So now I need to explain the slope-intercept form, which we have here, y equals mx plus b. And to explain that, I need to explain what m and b are in that equation. And m is the slope, which is the change in y over change in x, and that's often written as delta y over delta x. And b in our equation is the y-intercept. So now I want to compare my equation in standard form with our equation that we're asked to graph, y equals negative 3/4 x minus 2, and it's not quite in the form that we wanted, so we'll first put it in that form, and we'll write it as y equals negative 3/4 x plus a negative 2. So now we have it in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m, the slope, is negative 3/4, and b, the y-intercept, is negative 2. So let's write that. M, the slope, is negative 3/4, and b, the y-intercept, is negative 2. So now we want to graph that. I'm going to bring up a graph that we can look at, and want to resize that and move it into position. So now we're ready to start graphing, and first we'll look at our y-intercept, the point to where the value at which the graph will cross the y-axis is going to be at -2. So -2 is at this point on the y-axis, and that's going to be a point on the graph. So the next thing I want to do is look at the slope, and we can rewrite that slope as 3 over -4, meaning that our delta y is 3 and delta x would be -4 to get to the next point or another point on the graph. So we'll go on the y-axis, we'll go 3 in the positive direction, and on the x-axis we'll go 4 in the negative direction, and that will be another point on our graph. So we can mark that point as a point on our graph. So let's look at the slope again. We want to put in a third point here just to make sure that we have things correct. So the slope can also be written as -3 over 4. So we'll go -3 in the y direction and +4 in the x direction. So -3 in the y direction and 4 in the x direction gives us another point on our graph. So now we need to put a line through those 3 points, and I have a straight edge available to me that I'm going to place so that it runs between those 3 points. So there we have it pretty much running through those 3 points, and now I will draw a line along that straight edge and put an arrow at each end of the line to indicate that the graph extends on out beyond what you see. So that completes the demonstration of what the student would see. You've been seeing a select portion of my entire desktop. Hidden from view is the interface of the whiteboard, where I select pens, highlighters, colors, and such. So what I'll do now is draw a red rectangle around the edge of what you're seeing. So I got cut off the bottom corner of it, or the bottom side of it, but let me undo that and try it again. Okay, there we have it. So we're seeing pretty much the outline of what the whiteboard looks like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the whiteboard, or the view of what you're seeing, to my entire desktop, So you'll see it as I've been seeing it, and you'll be able to see all the tools that I'm using. I'm going to have to first minimize this and bring up my outline and go back into it. And now what I'm going to do is expand the view of what you're seeing to my entire desktop. Okay, there you have it. That's what I was seeing, and what was in red is what, in the red rectangle is what you were seeing. So first I want to point out that over here on the left is my interface to Confer, and I can see any chat that goes on. What I was seeing was these windows were in front of the Confer, and I could see behind that anything that was going on in the classroom through Confer. So let me now show you the tool windows that I've been using. These are my pins, colors, layers, and up across the top is a toolbar with various tools that I can use. And I'll show you a little bit about these. I won't go into a lot of detail. I'm going to drag my pin toolbar down to where we can see it better. And I'm going to show you what each pin is. This is fine. Need to get out of the rectangle view first. Undo that. This is a normal pin that I've been using for all my writing here. And this is a bold pen. And I use that for the red outline. And this is my dotted pen that I use to draw the dotted line. I have a highlighter, and I want to select the yellow color for my highlighter. And a wide highlighter that highlights a wider area. And I have a couple of erasers, a small eraser that will erase a portion, a small portion, and a large eraser that will erase a lot very quickly. So that's my pins. The bottom two pins I don't use. And then my colors should be pretty obvious here. I can select whatever color I want to write with. Undo that. It sometimes doesn't select what I want. And then I have a brown and a purple that I can use if needed. Yellow that I use mainly just for highlighting, and the light green that I could use for highlighting. That's an example of that. I'll undo that with a button on my pen. So that's the colors. Next thing I want to look at is the layers. So this is the layer window. And we've been working on the working layer, and I can hide that layer by clicking on this little eyeball thing, and it hides that layer and hides everything that was on it. So make it visible again. And then here's my graph layer, and that's how I made that graph visible. When I started, the graph layer was not visible. And when I wanted to display it, I clicked on this little eyeball that made it visible. Then I resized it and positioned it to where I wanted it. I have a background layer, which is the lines that you see here. If I hide that layer, the lines go away. Let me hide that and make I've got another background grid layer. Let me make that visible, and that puts a grid that I can write on top of. Might want to use that if I was drawing geometric figures, or perhaps wanting to do a graph and draw my own graph. So let me turn that one off, or hide it, and hide each of these layers. And what I want to show you what is left is the background layer, and I can change the color of that background layer. And this can be quite an interesting way of doing this, and it makes for a black background that I can use then to write on. And I need to create another layer to write on this, so I just clicked on that plus sign to create another layer, and now I can write on this black background. I have the yellow pen selected. This is very much like you'll see it in Khan Academy. If you're not familiar with that, he has math tutorials that and he uses a black background, and I can use other colors, of course. So that's another way that this can be used, with a black background and light colors. So let me close that and go back to our view of what we created. The next thing I want to do is show you the toolbar across the top. There's an undo button and a redo button. I have my pen programmed with one of the buttons to do an undo, so I can undo very quickly simply by clicking the button on the pen. This is the ruler that I use to draw the line, and this is the tool that I use to draw the rectangle. I won't go into any more detail about that. So that's my interface. Let's go back to the PowerPoint slides. And so we've looked at the demonstration and a little bit about how it was done. A little bit more about the software. I use Sketchbook by Autodesk, and I first got a free version of it, which was somewhat limited. They had a subscription to it for $25 a year, so I went ahead and purchased that so that I could do all of the things that I wanted to do. Other whiteboards that I tried were the Confer whiteboard, which was much more limited than what I wanted. I looked at Windows Paint that comes with Windows, and then three free paint programs, Paint.net, iFran View, GIMP. All three of those are free. I tried those, didn't have quite what I wanted. I tried Corel Painter, Corel Paint Shop Pro, which I have on my computer, not quite what I wanted. And I tried Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and OneNote, and those are quite useful. There's a couple of other instructors that use CCC Confer for teaching math, and one of them uses Word, one uses PowerPoint, and another one uses OneNote, and they use it quite effectively. So that would be an alternative to using Sketchbook. I'll show you a little bit more about that. I'm going to go into the modification view, back to the page that we were on. So up on the ribbon, I'm going to click on review, and then there's an item here, start inking. That allows me to write directly on the page with my pen. So I'm going to click on that, and our inking view comes up, so I can choose a red pen, and then I can write directly on the page. And I can use a highlighter, so I want to highlight what I'm talking about right now. It's Word, PowerPoint, and OneNote, which all have a similar interface. And we're looking at PowerPoint right now, but Word and OneNote are very much the same. I particularly like OneNote. The main problem I had with it was the lines, my writing, the lines were somewhat jagged, and I didn't like that at all. So that's why I didn't use it. But you might take a look at these if you're planning on doing something like this, and the learning curve for using Word, PowerPoint, or OneNote would be a bit less than using what I use, Sketchbook. It did take a bit of diddling around to get it set up the way I wanted it. So that's software and some alternatives to what I used. Let's go on now and look at hardware. I use two existing computers that I have, a desktop computer with Windows 7 for moderating and teaching, and then a laptop off to the side with Windows Vista on it for viewing as a student. And I found that having this laptop for viewing as a student was almost necessary for learning this, because what I'm seeing on the screen doesn't come out exactly like it does as a student would see it. New hardware that I purchased for this was a pen tablet, and it was $70, which is quite cheap for a tablet. The tablet that you'll see mentioned most often is the Wacom. Let me and that's quite a bit more expensive than the one that I bought. It has some more capabilities, but the pen tablet that I bought, the UG, does everything I need it to do, and I'm quite satisfied with it. And I bought a headset, which was the Microsoft LS6000. So let's go ahead and take a look at my hardware. Let me go to a full screen view of this, and okay, so the screen is updating now. Notice that it's quite slow, and I first started off thinking I might use a document camera to simply write on paper, and the student would see what I was writing on paper. But as you see, the slow redrawing of the screen, that was the same result that I was seeing using paper and my document camera. And the document camera you see right here. So I bought that, and but I find it still quite useful for other things. This is my my instructor's computer. This is what I'm seeing, and over here on the side is my laptop that I'm logged in as a student, so I can see just what the student would be seeing. This is my headset, and my tablet with the pen off to the side here is sitting on a stand that comes with a pen and tablet. I have this green tape, it's painter's tape that I put on there to identify the area that is active. And this particular tablet is a 5x8 active area tablet, and you can reset that active area to less than that. And I experimented around with that and wound up with a 4x7 active area, which is very close to the aspect ratio of my computer screen. And over on the left of the tablet are some buttons, and these yellow stickers I have on here are for my notes. These are to remind me of what I programmed the buttons to be, and then some other notes to myself. So that's it. I'm going to stop application sharing now and stop recording.